Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eduardo Figueiredo. I'm a Brazilian, and I'm head of sustainability and communication for Norsk Hydro. We operate, it's a Norwegian company that works across the aluminum value chain. We have our mine in the northern part of Brazil, in the Amazon, where we extract bauxite, refine into alumina, and then we smelt the alumina into aluminum that goes into cars, phones, everything that has aluminum that you use has a bit of our product inside. So the idea here today is to look into the way that we have been operating in Brazil, but especially how we deal with the connections that we have with local communities, and how we can use our capacity and the capacity of partners to generate positive impact, to use industry as a driver for positive impact where the materiality of the value chain is, in our case, in the Amazon. So just go for a quick round of introductions, please. If you guys could just state your name, tell about a little bit about the institution that you work and the importance of being here for you. André?
Thank you very much, Eduardo. My name is André Guimarães. I'm the Executive Director of IPAM. IPAM is the Amazonian Environmental Research Institute, an organization, a science-based organization that has been around for about 31 years, trying to understand precisely the relationship between human activities, mining, agriculture, etc., and nature. And we do believe that we have two main beliefs. One is that good quality information, scientific-based information, has the power to change. And the other belief that we have is that humans and nature can coexist. So we do apply our knowledge, our capacity to organize data and to process data and to try to find the best ways for humans, activities, as I said, to coexist healthily with nature. So this is what IPAM does.
Hi, my name is Birgit Euba. I am working for Mercedes-Benz, the car manufacturer, I think you're aware of. And my role in Mercedes is in strategic purchasing. So what we do there is everything that is related with sustainability in supply chains. So we work a lot with our partners, with our suppliers for every component that we get delivered from them, and we looked at or we make sure that it's human rights are ensured, right? That environmental topics are being considered, and as well the topic of recycled content in our cars. And yeah, we are partners with Hydro for some time, and very excited to be here today.
Thank you. So my name is John Lindberg, and I am with ICMM. ICMM is the International Council on Mining and Metals, and we represent 26 of the world's largest mining companies on all things sustainability. And one of the reasons why, when the Hydro team reached out for this conversation, I was really excited, is because a mine is never just a mine. A mine is so much more, and can be so much more. And ICMM has been set up more than 25 years ago next year, to work to redefine what does responsible and sustainability looks like for the mining sector. And I think this is a great conversation to explore what responsible practices at global level translates down to at national and local levels.
Just 1 second. I'm listening to another concert. Thank you.
Too much technology.
Okay, good. Good. This is working now. Good. So the idea behind this is to give different perspectives. So here we have a think tank with a lot of knowledge in the Amazon in Brazil. So there's a lot of experience in what should we do to ensure a low carbon, just world in the future. a company with very strong values, also pushing strong on sustainability, and the association of the mining. And then we have the challenge of being a mine in a world that says, okay, you guys need to be responsible, right? So we need to do this. So the idea today is to look at what we're doing in the Amazon and see what kind of opportunity do we see for the private sector to operate in an area with the challenges that we have in the Amazon. What does it mean for us, to our shareholders, to our stakeholders, and what are the challenges that we're facing, right? So I'll give a little bit of a summary of what we do in Brazil. That is the reason why we're sitting here together. Is we operate a mine in Paragominas in the Amazon, in the outskirts of the Amazon, called the Regeneration Arc now. And the bauxite ore goes through a pipeline 240 kilometers into our refinery. It's the biggest refinery in the world, where we produce alumina that's smelted in the aluminum that goes to our customers. In the pipeline alone, we have around 30 traditional communities with whom we have a formal consultation process, and to whom we have to prove that it's worthwhile to have that operation, and from whom we need to understand, okay, what are the priorities so that we can invest in the right place and in legitimate projects, so that they can see the value and the compensation of having a mine in a pipeline close to their homes. So we started this process establishing a connection with the community, saying, okay, we need to understand what are the priorities from your side. So we need to establish the right process to do that. But we also need to understand what's the connection between the actions that we do on the ground and the territory where the communities are, and see, okay, can we make a difference on a larger scale here? So the rationale for a company like ours is we put a significant amount of money into both mandatory and voluntary projects in the Amazon. And that has an impact, obviously. But it's not enough to change the scenario where we operate, because in that specific region, just one of the challenges, but Andrea, you're going to talk more about this, there's an incredible potential for bioeconomy. So there's a lot of products, from palm oil to cocoa, to different products from the forest, that have an economic potential, but the region lacks the basic conditions to thrive using this product. So one of the questions that we get from all the communities is, I want to get my living off the forest, and how do I do that? So I need you to support me. Again, we can't do the whole thing just by hydro ourselves, but we need to understand, how can I make our investments a connection to larger investments, so that we can attract partners to this place, and then make a real difference, make change, actual change that we can measure in that territory. And this was the seed to create the corridor program, when we call the NGOs and say, guys, you have the expertise. We're a bauxite mining company, a refinery. You have 30 plus years of expertise in the Amazon. What are the real challenges? We also have partners saying, okay, how do I connect with the community? Saying, okay, how do I put mechanisms in place so that I, with all the PMOs and all the lawyers and all the compliance, can understand how can I invest, put my money where the priorities really are. And then we said, okay, but we can't do this by ourselves. So we went to Mercedes, says, Mercedes, we're already partners. You're looking for the low carbon aluminum that we have, by the way. But there's more. You also want a responsible aluminum. And this is where the materiality is. And I think that in Brazil, it's a sweet spot. We have the ability to generate positive income, positive impact, because it's needed. It's also a safe jurisdiction where we have the licenses, we can operate in a safe way, so why don't you invest with us up here where the materiality lays in our value chain? And from day one, Mercedes says, yeah, let's do that together. So, and then we said, okay, we need to do this in a way that this is also an example. We think that we can set an innovative program using the value chain to drive changes. So in a very basic level, we have the communities. They're the ones that are telling us what to do. And then there's a bunch of us say, okay, how can we make this a bigger thing by attracting partners? Because we have brands that have value because of the responsibility. So that's the backbone of the program itself. So Andrea here needs to leave because he's part of a lot of negotiations in terms of making climate discussions a real thing. So I'll kind of focus on you in the beginning, Andrea. So you know the corridor from day one. What's different about it? How does a think tank NGO look at this in the Amazon?
Thanks, Eduardo, for the question. Let me pinpoint a few aspects ahead of time. First of all, the Amazon is fed up with the magical solutions. So every other year, someone comes with a crop that is going to solve all the problems, with an activity that is going to solve all the problems, with a design of a project that's going to solve all the problems. Honestly, I've been working in the Amazon for 35 years now, and I've seen everything. There's no silver bullet for solving problems. For complex problems, you have to have complex solutions. And so this is point number one, Eduardo. Point number two is that there's no human activities without impacts. Every single one of them. When I walk out of this room here, I'm causing impact into something. The difference is how you deal with the impacts. How do you manage your impacts? And you can manage it properly on a sustainable way or not. So that said, I think the opportunity that the corridor brings to us is an integrated look over a problem. The problem is the multi-faced problem. You have social discrepancies, you have economic discrepancies, you have different levels of development of different municipalities, you have political issues, you have infrastructural limitations and constraints. All of that have to be dealt with at the same time. So paving a road is important, but only paving a road may cause more deforestation and more inequalities alone. So you have to pave the road, but doing that with responsibility, creating protected areas so the assets, the natural assets are protected, making sure that consultations are made with people. So I think the beauty, Eduardo, of our corridor, and I've mentioned that several times in previous conversations, is the fact that for the first time, honestly, we can see an entire region from all of the aspects that I've mentioned. So we are looking at the social. We're trying to understand socially what are the expectations of that region. We are looking at the economic opportunities to promote the development in that region. We are also concerned about, the political decisions that would affect that region. And I think one of the in addition to looking at the territory with its complexities, which is, I believe, one of the main positive aspects of this program, it is also another one is the fact that we're working together, right? NGOs can go up to a certain point. Companies can go up to a certain point. Even though they have money, they have the capacity and so on, it's limited, the outreach that we have. Even political institutions or politicians, they have a limited capacity. And in a region like the Amazon, the capacity is even more limited because of the lack of resources and the nitty-gritty of the politics. But when you look at the territory as a whole, embracing and bringing together the different, different stakeholders all together around the same table, looking at the same direction, that gives us hope. That gives people, I believe, hope. That gives people the perspective that they can thrive. That gives people the perspective that their kids are going to have green jobs and may be able to thrive. And at the same time that we promote development and promote economic activities, we are also restoring nature. And in restoring nature, we are generating jobs. So this integrated and multi-faced perspective, I think, is maybe one of the most important aspects of our program, Eduardo.
So You kind of dodged a little bit because I think two questions in one. We have big issues in the Amazon. The Amazon is a unique biome, but we have other unique biomes in the world, right? So we have hotspots in biodiversity, and then we have areas with raw materials that are now a big thing on critical minerals and everything. So, but if you could tell me a little bit about the biggest challenges, I mean, if you pick, what are the key challenges and how can the private sector work? There's a fine line between private sector operating like we're doing in the Amazon. Are we stepping over the line and taking the, responsibilities of the public sector? Is there an expectation that we do that? How do you think we travel on this,
Well, I'm glad you've asked that because I think, let me try to put tropical forests in perspective globally. We're talking here, Eduardo, the tropical belt of the planet is responsible for producing 50% of the global food. So when we talk about food security globally, we are talking about protecting forests. And why is that? Forests, I'm an agronomist by training, I forgot to mention. Forests do not produce water. Of course, they do not produce water, but they distribute water. And that's what's important for food production. You want a lot of water when you put the seed on the ground, and then you have to have a good distribution of water. Then you have a lot of water when the fruits are growing or when the grains are fattening, and then you have to stop to harvest. So that distribution is provided by the forest. So when we go beyond certain limits of deforestation, we are affecting that capacity to produce food. That happens on a global level, but that also happens on a local level. So for instance, a certain municipality that has more deforestation than the neighboring municipality, and this is a result of one of the research that we had done in another state, Eduardo, but I think it fits perfectly in Pará state where the hydro operation is. The higher the percentage of native vegetation within a municipality, the more resilient is agriculture. In other words, less food inflation in the future. People can eat better and more because of the protected forest. So my point here is that we need to look at the complexity, as I said before, as a complex challenge. But to simplify the complexity to answer your question, what would be that point in which we can work and make a difference? That is stopping deforestation. And I think that will be a major delivery from our program, stopping deforestation, but we want to go beyond that. We want to go to stop deforestation and provide the means for people to thrive. And I think that's where the private sector steps in. Private sector have KPIs, which the public sector doesn't have, or if they have, they don't fulfill. Right? The private sector has funding and the capacity to leverage funds that sometimes NGOs and the public sector don't have. I think it's a big mistake, and I tend to agree with you with your point, is that the private sector should not even try to replace the public sector. On the contrary, should complement. The public sector in regions like the Amazon have profound limitations, profound lack of trained personnel, lack of capacity to react to crises and so on. So I think the beauty of this joint venture that we have, with the private sector, with the public sector, with academia, with NGOs, is that we can see this problem from different angles and we complement ourselves into seeking for the solution.
This is going to be a tough year because of the whole climate issue, which is it's almost make it or break it, right? In terms of looking at 5-10 years, we need to land the climate discussion. And this is a very particular year because of El Niño coming up. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, this is a tricky moment. Let me put it in numbers. 23-24, there was an increase in temperature in the Pacific, which is the main cause of El Niño, of 0.7 degrees centigrade. This year, we are looking at an increase of 2 degrees centigrade in the temperature of the Pacific, which means that we'll have from half of Brazil to the north a lot of droughts, and to half of Brazil to the south, a lot of rain and floodings. So we've had in 2024, you might remember this catastrophe in Rio Grande do Sul where millions of people were misallocated, lots of losses in the agriculture, the cities were damaged because of the floodings. And we had in the north the severe drought, which impede, for example, people to go to school because they need to use boats and so on. So I think this is very important for us to communicate urgently. I'm not talking 1 year from now. I'm talking a week from now. We have to start communicating with the local leaderships, with the school teachers, with the local authorities, with the smaller NGOs and associations. And the good news, Eduardo, is that we have the legitimacy in the territory, we mean in our program, our project, to deliver that message, which is a scary message indeed, but there's a solution there. So, but we have to prevent ourselves. We have to understand that there's a homework to be done, and that homework, the best we do the homework, the less we'll suffer in the future. And again, I think we are in a unique position to channel in information to the local communities and local population to avoid the worst.
Okay, thanks, André. So I called André to set the scenario for us. But I don't want you to leave on a bad note, André, because it's challenging, right? It's the reality of climate change coming to, knocking on our doorstep. So, but there's hope, right? What do you think about this?
Absolutely. There's hope, and the hope is in the forest. I think let me fly out of Brazil to the city of Medellin in Colombia. Medellin, some 8-10 years ago, decided to plant trees in the city. Very simple program. Let's get the kids from the school. Every Sunday they'll go with their families to plant 2, 3, 4 trees. To cut a long story short, in 8 years' time, just with some motivational programs for the population to plant trees, the temperature was reduced by 2 degrees centigrade. So there's hope indeed. But again, we need to cooperate. We need to engage people. We need to tell them, look, we have a problem, but we do have a solution. And once again, coming back to our corridor, to our territory, Eduardo, the fact that we are working together and passing on the same message. So let's say a mayor, for example, he's listening from a very important corporation. He's listening from some important and renowned think tanks. That the message is, Mr. Mayor, take care of your people. Prepare your people for dealing with their own needs. It's possible to do. Let's plant trees in the mid to the long term. That's the solution. In the short term, let's prevent people from walking on the streets after a certain temperature. Let's distribute water, potable water for the population. So there are measures that can be done, simple measures, not expensive ones. But sometimes the mayor is not connected to the challenge. I'm talking about the mayor, but local authorities, the priest, the sheriff, everybody has to engage into the process. And once again, I think the fact that we are the big external eventually bodies passing on the same message is very powerful. And I think we have the responsibility, but we can deliver hope to people.
André, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, my friend. I would love to stick around to listen to my colleagues here, but we have some discussions on cities on the Amazon that I have to participate now.
Great.
Thank you, Eduardo, for inviting. It was great to be here with you, Bess.
Okay, so, valeu, André. So, we had a think tank in the Amazon telling us, okay, if you want to generate positive impact, that's what you should do. And I think briefly, the message that we got from IPAM was invest in forests, invest in income generation, and also empower the local communities. Local communities are the backbone of securing our social license to operate. So the program is around that. So now that he's gone, I'll focus on the industry, right? A bit different questions so for you, Birgit, all the way downstream, how do you see this? What's the importance of this program for you?
So for us, the corridor program is, and it's not a project, right? It's a program. It's just a very holistic approach to how to address the issues that we just identified, the risks that we identified, that we also identified for our own supply chains. Perhaps we can also talk about this a little bit later, and not look at it only on a carbon perspective, but really looking also in the human rights issues, in the biodiversity issues, and in the same time, there is two pillars that were principles that we were really that were really important for us to be included there, which is, and we were obviously with the same opinion, but which is how to involve the local communities that are on site, because we saw on field visits to other places, we saw that there is a lot of kind of misguided development project, right, where you have schools without teachers, so you have the building, but you don't have the teachers, or so really looking into what is the needs of the local communities and how can we involve them into the decision-making process of allocation of funds. So that was the first pillar, and then the second one is also to make this really credible and to really ensure that that we're doing the right thing there and that it has real impact. We have to make sure that we can also measure this impact, so that we can have an index, for example, and we're using the Social Progress Index in this, which is part of 57 dimensions and indices and parameters, where there is service to the people, to the local communities, and they are responding to this service, and we really see what is the need that they have. And then in the second step also, how is their quality of life improving over time? So real KPI setting, but also KPIs measurement and measurement of impact is something that we are very much engaged of, and we are very interested in also learning more there, because we really want to figure out what is the difference of a very good project with a real impact.
Just before going to John, just picking back on what you said. So we talk about KPIs, and Andrea here said this is a bit of a difference of the private sector. We have KPIs, we have the shareholders. There's a pressure that we deliver on what we said. And Mercedes-Benz is a leader in sustainability, and that's because you have made commitments. And the commitments, you use the value chains, and you have a lot of different value chains that you have to work at. How do you work through the value chain or your supply chain to push the ambitious commitments that Mercedes has?
Yeah, the first question is, what is actually our commitment, right? So what we do is that we as Mercedes-Benz, we commit to source only components that are free of human rights violations, that are free of damage done to the environment, and that are just sourced in a responsible way. So that is our commitment. And in the same time, we do have, in our commitment goes beyond our factory gates, right? It's not only about what happens in Sindelfingen, which is a place near Stuttgart, but it's important to see what is really happening in our supply chain. And the challenge here is that if you imagine a car, right? It's so many components in the car. It's so many materials. I always feel like there is no material on earth that is not in our cars. So it's a lot of suppliers. We have some thousand suppliers in our supply chain. We have a lot of tier 1 suppliers. And in the same time, our core business is to build desirable cars. Our core business is not mining. And the risks that we face or that we have in the supply chain are mainly in the upper supply chain. And what is the challenge here is that the mine is so far away most of the time from where we are. So we have supply chains in which we have 10, 12 intermediate steps between us and the mining companies. And this is a real challenge that we face, and how to address this challenge. What we do is that we have a very systemic risk approach. So we do risk assessments. We are looking into materials. We identified 24 risk materials in our cars that are coming with a risk. And we identify what exactly is the risk. Is it the extraction methodology? Is it surface mining, surface level mining? Is it deforestation? Is it a human rights risk? Is it a child labor risk? And then we find measures for each and every one of these risks that we identified in the first place. And we also put these measures into our purchasing power. So what does this mean? We are using our purchasing requirements that every supplier has to sign, that every supplier has to accept before they are getting an awarding, before they are able to deliver to us. And we ask them to accept this and also, of course, to comply to these measures. That can be also being standards or certifications of mines, audits of mines, but that can also be CO2 targets, for example. So this is how we approach it. At the same time, we are also trying to really build on robust standards, standardization as well. We, for example, do support IRMA very much, but we're also trying to work on other standards to really lift the bar of ambition there and to make sure that we get a systemic change. So not only top-down through the value chain, but also bottom-up together with miners, with standard-setting companies, etc.
Okay, I'm going to hold you there for a bit. I'll come back to the value chain thing. But John, in ICMM is what, 26 members? The mining sector is not, let's say, it's a vital sector for the planet as it is today. It's the model we all chose, right? It's humanity uses metal. But at the same time, we have to find a way to work with society so that society trusts mining, right? I think that's a big thing for us. So how do you see this? Because you have 26 of the most powerful mining companies in your association. How do you see this kind of initiative as innovation, as a driver?
Thanks. That's a very, very, very good question. And I like how you frame it around trust, because you're right. Everything that we look around us, if it hasn't been grown, it's been mined. And I know that's a really cliche way of looking at it, but it is true. Every facet of modern life at some point will depend on minerals and metals that have been extracted somewhere in the world. And over the last 5-10 years, we've seen a remarkable transformation where initially no one wanted to talk about minerals and metals, and the few times you would hear about it would be when a disaster would have struck or when human rights abuses were discovered in certain value chains. And all of these things, heartbreaking. But what we have seen over the last 5 years as the pressure on the transition has increased is that recognition that minerals and metals do matter a lot more than perhaps we think about. But with that very fundamental role that minerals and metals plays to every facet of life also comes the question of how do we make sure that the stuff that goes into our cars, that goes into our phones, our airplanes, our TVs, that they are produced in a way that isn't using child labor, that isn't subject to human rights violations, that isn't leading to massive deforestation or whatever it may be. How do we then make sure that things are sourced and produced in a responsible fashion? And this is where the question of trust comes in. So ICMM, next year we'll be celebrating 25 years. And ICMM was born out of a process in the 1990s where a couple of really progressive mining companies, but also governments and other stakeholders came together with a very clear problem statement. Society do not trust the mining industry. And I would argue, personally, at that point for a pretty good reason. There'd been time and time again that the industry had abused its role. And through a very robust process, which asked the question, okay, how do we regain trust? ICMM was born. So back in the days, we were 5 members, and now, as you say, we are 26. And 26 of the largest mining companies brought together by a single vision. How do we make sure that we produce minerals and metals to the global economy and to the local economy in a way that is responsible and, to the degree that we can be, sustainable? And I think the corridor is a really good example of understanding that a mine, as I said in my opening part, a mine is not just a mine. A mine is a source of employment, it's a source of revenue, it's a source of concern, it's a source of change. And by bringing people together, the industry, governments, civil society, investors, consumers, you start to get to a process of co-creation where everyone's realities are realities as the miners, the realities of those that live by the mine, those that work at the mine. By co-creating, we can start to build a vision that everyone can trust, and through that trust, we can then start to build something more robust. And I think the corridor is a really good example of where you bring together people into partnership, into a real partnership, not just paying lip service, and actually hearing what people's realities are and what their needs and desires are, as we heard earlier. So I think the corridor is a great example of that.
That's very good. So, just a reflection here from what you said. We invested in a program was born from small initiatives that were very successful, and then we expanded them, right? Bringing more partners in and expanding the outreach of the program. We see now the assurance of the social license to operate depends on stability, which depends on trust. So for us, on the long term, it's better to invest on a steady way more and more and attract partners so that the results can say, okay, we impact the life of people. Not saying that have a mine, we impact on forests. We have to take down forests to mine. So that's the reality of a mine in the Amazon. We impact the lives of people. But then the balance is, how can I, even if I impact the life of people, have a trustful relationship? And that's a long run. You have to be persistent. You have to make it, every single day for a long time, so you change the pattern. And then it's a business, right? It is a capitalist world. So there's a business case for this. And the way we look at this, there is a potential competitive advantage if we do the right thing, like we do with carbon, right? We see carbon now is part of Hydro's strategy because we believe that there's going to be a price. We're not going to talk about price here, obviously, or premiums or whatever. But we believe that the low carbon will be worth more than the competition that's not low in the future. We're waiting for the market to be in place, but that's our strategy, right? In terms of human rights and biodiversity, it's the same thing. Either there's going to be a higher value because the markets are going to recognize that, or you will only have a license to operate if you respect those issues. So for us, it's a competitive advantage.
That's it.
And then I come back to you on your value chain, because again, you have like thousands of different materials into a Mercedes-Benz car, and then you put that in a high-end market, right? We're across the value chain. We're from the mine until the piece of metal that goes into a Mercedes is one single supplier. How's that different? What's the importance of that for you, for Mercedes, Birgit?
It actually is a big difference. It actually makes a big difference for us because it kind of saves a lot of time of understanding our supply chain because we already have a pretty good understanding of the Hydro supply chain. So we know, as you said, as a vertically integrated supplier, you're most of the time our direct supplier. Sorry, that was a mistake. You're most of the time our indirect supplier through one other direct supplier, or you're also even delivering to us directly into the cast house. And what makes the difference here is that we know exactly with this supply chain, we have a direct connection to the people in the Amazon, to the people that are living, that are working in the mines, because we can really see there is the mine, there is the refinery, then there is the smelter, and then there is one part of component manufacturing, and then it is us. So we have this very direct link, and that makes the difference in also the approach that we have. We feel like even more responsible for this supply chain than for others. Direct sourcing for us brings with it a bigger responsibility for what we do there. And at the same time, it's also a big opportunity because we could visit these places. We were, I think, before, like 2 years ago, we were on a field trip together, right? We had the chance to visit the mine. We had the chance to visit the refinery, the pipeline. We were in Norway. So we could visit and see and review every single step of this supply chain and also get to know the place better, understand the issues, the complexity. And that's actually one thing that is important for me because it seems to be so easy, right? Just source human rights violations free material, but it is not. There is so much complex environment in these kind of sensitive regions that we are mining in or that we are sourcing from in the end. And what is also special is that, for example, for the new CLA, we know the material for the wheels, the material for the motor hood, the materials for the supporting frame. This is all coming in the beginning from Hydro. So we have these parts and we have the direct connection there. And it's interesting as well for me as a person, as an employee of Mercedes-Benz, that I saw these places, and so it's a very special program for me. We talked with the people, we could hear their experience. So I feel like it's a special place for me, and I really want to also make a difference there as our company. In the same time, what is interesting in our relationship is that we did not start with these kind of topics, but we started with the CO2 reduced aluminium. So we came from a position where we said we want to come down with carbon in our supply chains. We want to electrify our portfolio. When we do that, we want to make sure it's done in a good way. It's not just shifting CO2 emissions, but it is, we will reduce carbon still in the whole life cycle. And then we met, right? And we talked about this topic that we have to not only look at carbon, but we have to look beyond carbon, and we have to make sure that the whole electrification journey that we are on is done in the right way, and it's done in a just way. So it's just transition to bring the people in that are on site, in the mines, close to the mines, etc. And that is what really makes the program very special. So we extended the partnership that we had for CO2 reduced aluminium. We brought in the other dimensions. We talked about standards. We talked about how we can do this project together and this program together. And I think it is developing very well in the moment. And we can also learn this. So it's a big experience of learning for us to work together with local experts like yourself as a mining company, but also with Andre from EPAM, with the other NGOs, to really understand better and to see that. We are also discussing internally a lot, right? What is exactly our role in these kind of projects? And that would be perhaps a return question to you. What do you feel is the benefit that we as Mercedes, as a global brand, bring into the project?
Well, I think from day one, right, we were discussing low carbon, and I think that's the path for CO2 is very objective now, right? So you can put numbers on CO2, and you can put KPIs or targets for CO2. So that's a very specific question. The beyond carbon is a new thing because it's less subjective. It's pretty much understanding how to measure impacts that are not necessarily your own in the territory, and that's a very hard thing to do. So there's a story behind this, but telling a story is also a bit dangerous because you don't want to see, credibility is a big thing. And there's a question for you guys in this. So we cannot be seen as, lacking credibility of what we do. So everything that we do needs a number behind us. So that's a strong thing. But again, it's a storytelling process, because we need to move people. That's the biggest thing. And then this is where I think valuable brands playing together is extremely important for us, because the idea is that, again, we can only do so much as a company in the area where we are that lacks basic conditions to thrive with bad economy, for example. But then if we start, bridging through the value chain and bringing brands in that can say, okay, this is how we can work together. I think this is the goal of working with a brand like Mercedes-Benz. Let's see you're touching your headphones. Okay. Is that better? Okay. So the idea behind, I think, the importance of Mercedes-Benz really is to use everybody knows Mercedes-Benz, right? So having both brands together for us, it's an enabler to scale up the project. This is why we have IPAN. This is why we're also working with Mitsui and Mitsui Foundation. So this is why we're attracting partners that bring technical expertise, but also the value of the brands putting together and say, okay, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to make the change. But there's the credibility part. And then I go back to you. I think this might be the last question, because this is a bit of the challenge for John. ICMM is about the principles, right? I mean, this is a number of associations that say, okay, we're bound together by principles. And the idea is that we're pushed more and more into sustainability. But the question is credibility an asset? Meaning, is there a business case for this? Can we look into the future, say, there's a market for the companies that are investing. It's the metal, but is there the metal plus sustainability? How do you see the future like this?
So absolutely. I mean, credibility is not just really important. I think it's a cornerstone in a lot of what we're doing. And you're right. ICMM was set up around guiding principles that all of our members have to follow as a condition of membership, which was very much okay. If you want to do things responsibly across these various aspects, this is what you should be considering. And it was something you said earlier around doing things responsibly and the business case around that, because credibility and trust and responsibility are, if you like, it's a very strange coin, but they're sort of three different faces to the same coin. Because if you do things responsibly and you do so consistently, that builds credibility, i.e. Hydro is saying that they are doing things responsibly and they can show us that to the consistency they are doing so. And that builds competence, which builds trust. And if your supply chain, if your local communities, if your investors all can see that Hydro or any other company are consistently staying true to their word, that will start to pay off. And it also ties then back to why should you even do things responsibly? And in sort of the political environment we're in now, where everyone wants to talk about critical minerals, we want to open up X amount of mines as soon as possible, we want to friendshore, ally shore as much as we can as quickly as possible. Often we're starting to see the sort of the trends from certain, shall we say, policymakers around, well, let's not do things, responsibility is less important. We need to do things very, 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 very quickly. But the problem with that, if you were to step away from responsible practices, is actually you introduce greater risk into your supply chains, and ultimately you increase the risk of things going wrong, which will undermine your credibility and fundamentally undermine trust. And again, if your local community doesn't trust you, well, we know what happens. We see this around the world, where local communities that do not feel that they're getting a fair share out of their mine might protest, they might block the roads, etc., etc., etc. So there is a very tangible element that I think you can put a monetary value to, and there have been attempts at doing so, that if you do things responsibly, not only does that make sure that you maintain your social license to, or actual license to operate, but also it makes you a more profitable company and a more reliable partner, be that to your local community, government, or your suppliers.
No? I don't know. Yeah? Okay, back. Final words, Birgit. So wrapping up what John said, what we all said here, in looking at Mercedes-Benz market, you sell more than a car. You sell a brand. You sell the value. And so, what's the meaning of everything translated into the dream that you sell to whoever buys your car?
I mean, the dream is that we can together create a world in which we have good cars that are like great cars that are, for example, electrified, and that every customer can use without even having to think about is this really bringing some, did this car bring some positive impact to the world, or did it not? Was it a negative impact in the supply chain or not? And I think this is what we really want to also communicate to the customers. Perhaps we're not there, right? But this is what we strive for. This is what our vision is, to really have responsibly sourced supply chains, clean driving cars. This is where we are going for. That would be my answer.
Good, very good, thanks. So the idea here today, and in acknowledging, the great contribution that you guys done also on that, what you bring, what we're working on is a business case for sustainability beyond carbon. I think carbon is pretty much established, let's say. It's not completely there, but established. But beyond carbon, I think their business case should be made. Why is it better, other than doing the right thing in terms of the value chain? Why? Right? What's the business case for this? And I think we're on our way there. It's still an uphill battle, more than ever, but this is the way there. So I'll open. Is there any questions from anybody, so we can wrap up? Nope. Good. Can I clear the? So. Thanks, Birgit, a lot. Thanks, Sean. It was really good. And thanks for the invite, Reset. I think Rob is here somewhere. And you have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.